Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark. It is Wednesday. I'm supposed to saying Monday. It is Wednesday, December 11th. We are here 2 days late because all the schedule is all messed up, but that's okay. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are we doing this fine Wednesday?
Hey, Parker, I guess better late than never. Monday night, you were busy. Tuesday night, I was busy. And Wednesday night, this fell nicely between two Canucks games. So I'm doing well. Hope you are doing well as well. I hope we're both doing better than our favorite hockey team.
Yeah, it's been a weird week. A lot of, really in the end, it was 500 hockey over the last week. It felt a lot worse. One win in 4 games is really not ideal, especially when you look at the teams they played, and they're fairly beatable teams, right? Losing to the Wild, last game of a road trip, you can see it happen. Blue Jackets, abysmal first period, ended up pulling it out. And then just, getting beat by the Lightning, getting beat by the Blues in overtime last night. Just not the best week.
Yeah, and it's and I kind of said this when I tweeted out our show, that to make sure people remember that we're still alive here. That I know we're going to get to it. It's right in your thumbnail. It's right in the title. There's always stories. There's always stories with this team, and you don't even have to talk about the on ice. Of course, these stories affect the on ice, but there's so much off ice that happens with this team, and guys getting injured, the guy coming back, then another guy gets injured, then another guy. Oh gosh, I guess it's good for us as content creators.
Yeah. I don't care about that as much as I want the team to do well, unfortunately. But for all the sort of like it's such a weird year because the team's 14-8-5, which is fine, right?
Yeah.
Like generally from a record perspective, they're doing okay. They're sitting in a playoff spot right now. Like the world isn't ending, but we've had so much just confusion and drama throughout the first what's it been 2 months now of the season. With injuries and leaves and our goalie who was only supposed to be out for a couple rounds of the playoffs, who didn't come back until yesterday, 9 months later. Nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense with this team.
Remember they said he could have played Game 7 against Edmonton? Remember that?
Yeah. And then Sarah Sivian was like, I heard he's going to be out the whole playoffs. And everyone was like, that's impossible. It turns out a little longer than the playoffs.
Sarah Sivian was smart. Yeah.
Good to have him back, though, because now we have, in theory, the perfect duo, right? We've got one of the best home goaltenders in the league, one of the best road goaltenders in the league, and we should be unbeatable if we just play them in the right spot. Obviously, if it was that easy, that would be lovely. But there's a lot of question marks still.
I go back to my
mark of the season.
Yeah, and I go back to my preseason predictions, which I know everyone loves. I know I love. I know you and I both got butchered last year, but I'm not smart, man. I can't believe that for the how many games will Shilov start? I knew that Demko was coming back. I knew that Shilov would be sent down. And I still picked like 22 games or something stupid like that.
Yeah, that wasn't your finest moment.
And he's played 4, and he's 1-3 or 1-4. He's not good.
He didn't do great. But no, it's good that he gets to just go rip a bunch of games in the A now. Now that Demko's back, and the Canucks have a pretty nice combo, right? Especially when you don't want Demko to play every other night for the next 5 months and then go into the playoffs. My perfect scenario is you just split them the rest of the way, unless you get to a situation where you really need to win a bunch of games. But even then, Lankinen's been pretty good, and I think they're okay with the combo that they've got. So
right.
Demko gets back in for the first time last night. What'd you think of how he looked?
Well, I was gonna say, who cares what I think? You were actually there, but you saw. But I'll go first, and then you can clean up my mess, kind of like Lankinen has had to do with Shilov's. I thought he was fine. Admittedly, I was watching while I was bowling, trying to win some money last night, but I certainly wasn't worried. And after I saw a couple of highlights, a couple of 5-alarm saves, he was fine going left to right, right to left. Like his lateral movement was fine. The one goal I wasn't sure, because I just caught it out of the corner of my eye, was the second goal, the shorty, where he kind of didn't even go down. He kind of flung at it with his blocker, but I'd love to hear your perspective on that. It looked awkward, but then I thought maybe it was just such a good shot. He didn't have time to go down. I don't know. So overall, he was fine. The fact that, I wasn't expecting a shutout. I wasn't expecting him to let in 8 goals. So he was right in the middle, but maybe he would like 2 of them back, maybe the overtime winner too. But the other 2 were left to right. He had no chance.
Yeah. And there was a heck of a shot by Thomas, I think, on that second one. And you gotta think, like, and he even said it himself, right? There's rust there, and you can't imagine not playing at an NHL level for 9 months, no conditioning stint, no nothing, right? They didn't, hey, go play 4 games in Abbotsford, right? And they're like, no, back, just, you'll skate with the team for like 2 weeks and then you're playing games, basically. And that's, I thought he looked okay. I mean, obviously, the numbers aren't fantastic, 4 goals on 25 shots, but he looked. He's just so stable in comparison to Shelovs and a little bit of Lankinen as well, right? Shelovs is very active. Lankinen's sort of a middle ground, but makes some really nice sprawling saves when he needs to. Demko had the one really good pad save sliding across, which made me happy to see, and it's always a little stressful. Anytime he would go down, it's like, hey, please get up and please be okay.
Please get up.
But he seemed to be fine, and I think it's one of those ones where he just needs more reps at this point. But
was the crowd loud for him? Were you there from the start? Were they loud?
Yeah. No, the crowd was very loud for him. It was good because we were actually sitting on that end of the ice. Normally I wouldn't want to sit on that end of the ice, but it worked out okay yesterday. But sort of getting a good up close view of him coming back.
Okay. And by the way, were there any? I didn't see on social. I didn't hear. Were there any JT Miller chants during the game?
Not last night, as far as I recall. No, there wasn't. But I know there was in the previous games. The crowd was fine last night. It wasn't anything super special. It was a Tuesday night for a team that hasn't been doing well at home. It felt like. But I think. As you get into the weekend, I'm sure it's a bit of a different story because it's a long homestand that we're on here. Yeah, and some big games. Stanley Cup champs tomorrow, and our favorite team on Saturday. So it should be good. And then Colorado on Monday, which is that's a oh my gosh. Oh yeah, I'm not looking forward to doing our end of show predictions today. yeah, and that Monday one's a late one too, a 7:30. To end the homestand, which is it seems like an odd choice, but. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you want to go backwards or forwards? What's your theory here? I think we just go backwards. I don't think we need to spend too much time on any games in particular. This might be a bit of a tougher one for me because I didn't watch the Lightning game. Because that was the afternoon one, right? Yeah. See, that one was tough for me because I was out of the house, so I recorded it. I had that and the Seahawks game recording at the same time. And my plan was, I'm going to watch the whole Seahawks game, and then I'm going to watch the whole Canucks game. It's only going to take me like 2.5 hours. So I can skip all the commercials, all the whistles, everything. I've got my phone on Do Not Disturb, face down on the other side of the couch. I can't accidentally open, instinctually open Twitter and get it spoiled. So I watched the whole Seahawks game, big win, and I start watching the Canucks game, get through the first period. And I just do the thing when your phone's in Do Not Disturb where you sort of like slide it up just to see what notifications you have. Usually it piles them all on top of each other. So you've got you got notifications from Twitter, from this and this. But Google, their notifications for some reason don't go in that stack. So it's just a floating Lightning 4 Canucks 2. And I'm like, I'm not going to watch them. So I know nothing really about that game. The Columbus game I did watch, and then the Wild game I watched, but that was a long time ago at this point, so I don't really remember much of it. So you're telling me that if you don't watch a game, like you're busy, golfing, family, whatever, that you actually have the discipline to not check X, not check websites, not get spoiled, no notifications, hopefully, and actually watch the game without knowing who won? That's impressive. It really depends on the day. This was a day where I was out on a Sunday morning and was really looking forward to just a sports day. So I was like, I'm gonna do whatever we got to do out of the house, and then I'm just gonna sit on the couch and watch sports for a few hours. And it seemed like the perfect plan until it was spoiled. But usually it depends. Most of the time, I'm not gonna bother. Right. Keep up with it.
Well, I agree. Like, we don't have to spend too much time even on the other 3 games, but we can talk about last night's game. This is de facto post game, especially because you were there. Tell me how did other guys look? Like, what were your impressions? Who stood out to you, good or bad? And talk to me about that defense with no Brandstrom. I want to know what that was like live.
It was one of those ones where, you know, we're having dinner before the game, sitting in a bar. We're just like, why is he not playing? Why would we healthy scratch this guy? He's been like our second or third best defenseman, frankly. And it seems like a very, very bizarre choice to put in. Was it Friedman that got the actual?
Yes.
I always get mixed up on who actually took the spot, but yeah, like it seemed like a really odd choice to put Friedman in instead of Brandstrom. Because it really doesn't do a lot for your defense. I'm wondering if the thought was, hey, we got our goalie back for the first time in 9 months, and we're going to go full defensive mode. But yeah, like with Quinn Hughes on the ice, the team can do something. But when Quinn Hughes is off the ice, and then you're, you know, Soucy and Juleson and Darnay and Friedman, it's a pretty, like, there's not a lot coming up the ice, is what I'll say. So it really did feel like whenever Quinn was on the ice, it was a treat. And we spent probably a good chunk of time laughing during that game. Every time Quinn would just do something, because it's hard not to, right? He just does something that makes someone look silly, and you just laugh at how absurd it is to watch him play. And then the whole other time, it felt like there's just nothing being produced. So Quinn Hughes, obvious MVP. I feel like Pettersson and Besser still don't work together. You know, I think back to when they peaked, that 6-5 OT win, or 7-6 OT win against Colorado with the bank pass.
Yes.
Probably like, was that 5 years ago now? And since then, they just haven't worked together. Like that's such a big hole that JT Miller is going to be filling when he comes back, because then you can go back to PD DeBrusque, Miller, Besser, you know, Garland and Bluger and Joshua, or whatever
exactly.
you do, and things get, like, the lineup just looks so much better once you do that.
Actually, you took the words right out of my mouth. People have been asking me on my shows, Parker, how do I line them up when Miller gets back? And I say that you can go Miller, Besser, Suter. That was your great line in the playoffs last year. You can go PD DeBrusque and say Sherwood, keep Bluger between Garland and Joshua. You're right. That's a great top 9. Then you go Heinen, Hoglander, and one of Ratu or Sasson, and there you go. There's your top 12.
Yeah, it's so much better, because right now you look at the lines, you have DeBrusque, Pettersson, Besser, which are the 3 best, like, talent-wise on your forward group right now, right? And then it's Joshua and Suter and Garland, and it's like, oh wait, that's a third line, right? Like that shouldn't be your second line. And then you have Bluger, Sherwood, Hoglander, which I think is a great third line. And then your bottom 3, right? Ratu, Sasson, Heine, which again I think is a fine fourth line, but they're not gonna generate too much, and that's sort of what we saw. So yeah, it felt like a pretty low event game, right? There wasn't a ton going on. Obviously, it was nice to see Joshua get one.
Freddie asked, what was the crowd like for Dak's goal?
Yeah, crowd was fired up for that one, when especially when the name gets announced. But yeah, it was that was good to see.
Yeah, good. And thank you, everyone. We will have time for questions once we get to the last part of the show. So thank you for asking them. We might not get to them right away, but we'll certainly leave some time. So other impressions. So Brandstrom doesn't play. Friedman gets hit with the puck. The usual. Oh, I was going to ask you, did you see this non-trip? I didn't see it, actually. Everyone's talking about that they called him Besser. Okay,
it was right in front of us.
What'd you see?
It was egregious. It was. I think that was the only tweet I had in like a long time, because I don't open Twitter. Like, if I can avoid it. And I see Besser has 2 ends on a stick like this, as you'd hold a hockey stick in your hands, and he gives a guy a bit of a sort of shove in the back of the pants.
Bit of a shove.
But his stick blade is at like thigh height.
Yep.
And his feet aren't near the other guy's feet. So I don't know how it's tripping. It doesn't make any sense. It was a crazy call. And then St. Louis scores, and then the Canucks get a makeup call back, and they score, but like the damage is already done, momentum's already moving. It was a crazy call that like, and then the replay came on and everyone was shocked. They're like, oh, that is what we saw. No, we were right. Yeah, it was a terrible call.
It was Pareko, right?
It sounds right.
And wasn't Pareko the one who put the puck in his own net, trying to block PD's pass to Garland?
That also sounds right.
Okay, eventful game for him.
Yeah, all over the score sheet, kind of.
Four Nations face-off, Pareko, mind you. Yes, he made the team. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Anything else from last night that stood out to you?
Not particularly. Really just. I don't know if I saw the stat earlier today, and I might have lost it, but it was with Hughes on the ice compared to with Quinn Hughes off the ice. And I've got it here. So with Quinn Hughes on the ice, 30 minutes of ice time. He played half the game.
Yeah.
The Canucks had 49 shot attempts. When he was not on the ice, the Canucks had 9 shot attempts. So 5x.
That's unbelievable. That really
when
is.
He was on the ice, the Canucks had 21 shots on goal of their 25.
Okay.
So the other half of the game, they had 4. 6 high danger chances with him on the ice, 2 with him off the ice. 3 goals with him on the ice, 0 goals with him off the ice.
How is this possible? I know how it's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's by far the most important player to this team, because without him right now, like this team is bad. And that's a problem.
Does the Hart Trophy go to most? It's not most outstanding. There's the most valuable?
It's most valuable, but I don't think the 2-year team is part of the question.
Oh, okay.
I think it's just most valuable.
I understand.
Which I think is, it's a weird, because I think most outstanding is Ted Lindsay, even though it's voted on by the players.
Good point. Good point.
So it's most valuable, but you can be the most valuable player in the league and be on a team that has 140 points. It's like, sure, you're not the reason they made the playoffs, but you still provided the most value.
Right.
Right. And I always, I feel like it should be team independent.
Right. But obviously, you know where I'm going with this. Then, like, name me a player who's more valuable to their own team in the league than Quinn Hughes. You just proved it to me right there.
Yeah, I think you just look at it from where would this team be without that player? Right? like look, Makar's fantastic, but then you take him away. Like McKinnon's still doing really well. You still have a really good number 2 D-man in Devon Taves.
Yep.
Without Quinn Hughes, this team is a tire fire. And that wasn't really the case last year, right? Obviously he was very good last year, right? Won the Norris last year, was a really big part of the team, but it didn't feel like the black hole that we're seeing right now when he wasn't on the ice. And because it's happening a lot, like there's a lot of these games where it's just waiting for Hughes to get back on the ice to have some chances get created. It's they need to, someone else has to step up and start sharing the load.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Remember going into the first couple months of the season or going to All-Star break, it was Quinn, JT, and PD all fighting for a scoring lead, like in the league, which is pretty cool. And that just shows last year, you're right, it wasn't this black hole. There were other contributors, and this year a little different. PD starts slow. Miller hasn't been around the last month, so I get it. It's a different situation this year. So thank goodness we have him. That's all I got to say. Wow.
Yeah.
You think he'll be a captain of USA on, or is that Austin Matthews for the Four Nations? Who cares, right?
It's tough. It's a harder question than Canada, right? Canada's, it's they're like, oh, it's Crosby, right? It's Crosby. Come on. But in the States, they don't really have anyone who's like been an established captain, right? It's not like, there's no one that stands out really. There's a few captains, right? Like Larkin and Hughes and a couple others, but like, I guess Kachuk, Brady,
right.
But like none of those guys are like, big time captain, long time leaders. So I don't know. It could be. It's a tougher question.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we did a pretty good job wrapping up last night's game. Going out of it. So where's your concernometer out of 10 on Demko? Is it a 0? Like you're fine?
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have a great game last night, but I don't know what you'd expect. Right. That seems unlikely. So I'm always concerned because I'm scared he's going to get hurt again. Knock on wood. But yeah, in one game, I didn't expect him to go get a shutout last night, right?
Right.
I just wanted to see how he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good. No. Okay. I just, uh, I just I don't like it when the Canucks lose to anyone. I don't like it when they lose to teams they should beat. But at least I guess Binnington was in a net. That's the one that would be the most annoying if Binnington beat us. For some reason that guy annoys me.
There's good reasons. I think he annoys a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he's gonna put that maple leaf on, and I'm gonna be a big Jordan Binnington fan for a week.
Oh yeah, big. By the way, Coach Rob gifts 5 memberships. Thank you, Coach Rob. They go to Terry, Grim, Freddie, Smiley Hello, and Jacob. That is awesome. Thank you, Coach Rob, for your support. All right, so neither of us watched the Tampa game, but I think the storyline that came out of there was simply their best players were really good, especially on their power play, and our best players weren't very good, and that was the bottom line, I think. Yeah,
and just based on numbers, again, I didn't see a good chunk of the game, but the Canucks took a period off, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at the shot totals: 8-7 in the first period, 12-8 in the third period, 18-5 in favor of Tampa in the second, right? And that's when they score 2 of their 4. They take the lead. Sherwood ties it, but a late goal with 4 minutes to play from Gensel, who has always owned us, put it away on the power play, and then of course the empty netter, which doesn't matter.
Yeah, can you look up quickly, Parker? And I don't have to stall. You're fast, but just talk to me about the analytics, the 5-on-5, because the narrative coming out of that game was actually the Canucks. I wouldn't say well, you can tell me if they controlled play, but they were fine. They're fine at 5-on-5. It was the special teams that did them in, but do the stats bear that out?
Yeah, 5-on-5, it's pretty even. Expected goals, 52% to 48%. Scoring, shots 20-19 in favor of Vancouver. High danger chances 11-7 in favor of Tampa. Total scoring chances 21-18. Yeah, you look at these totals and you're like, oh, okay, it's a pretty even game. Actual goals, the Canucks had more at 5-on-5, right? The Canucks had 2-1 at 5-on-5. Obviously, there's a 6-on-5 that doesn't count towards that, and then the 2 power play goals. So they kept them to 1 goal at 5-on-5. But hey, maybe you shouldn't be taking a too many men penalty with 6 minutes to go in a tie game.
No, yeah, you just can't. The way this team is, they seem fragile, especially at home. You just can't make those mistakes. You really can't. Brutal. Okay, so that's easy. That was Sunday. Neither of us watched it, so we're fine.
Yep. Canucks beat Columbus after doing nothing for 20 minutes, getting outshot 17-2 in the first period, going down 2-0, and then just battling back. They scored 2 in the second, 3 in the third, including 1 in an empty net. They got back from a 6-game road trip. But they would have gotten back. I don't know if they flew back on the night of the 3rd, but worst case, they got back on the 4th last Wednesday. And then they didn't play till Friday night. And it really looks like their flight didn't land until like 8 p.m. During this game. Because you should not be allowing the Columbus Blue Jackets in year 2024 to outshoot you 17-2 in a period unless you're up 6-0 after 2 and you're just waiting to go home. Yes. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, the other thing is, and thank God they have Elvis Merzlikins. I'm not sure. I still don't know what he was doing a week later. But if he doesn't make that bonehead play, you could argue the Canucks don't win that game.
That was one of the worst plays I've seen in a while. Because I get it. If it's a tight foot race and you're like, hey, I can get to the puck first. His D-man had a full 2 steps. Like he could have just picked it up, took it around his net, stopped behind his net. Everyone goes, gets a change, nothing happens. Yeah. But instead, he's like, no, I'm just going to go beat my own guy to the puck and try to fire it up the wall. That was so silly.
It was. And it's not just any D-man. It's like all-star, 4 Nation face-offs.
Right?
Yeah, Zach Werenski. Yeah. It was just so weird. Heads up, great play by Blueger, not only to block, but then to have the wherewithal to drop it to Sherwood instead. That was great. It was really good.
I just pulled up the goal visualizer. This is a good one. It's one of the funnier goal visualizers I've seen, because that puck comes all the way around, and Merzlikins doesn't move till it's at the blue line basically. And like, why? He was never getting beat. Like, it came around. Yeah. He was never farther from the puck than Teddy Blueger was. Ridiculous play.
Ridiculous. Okay, but there's a team that they had to beat. We both predicted that, so we got that one right.
Yeah, they only got handily outplayed and scored 5 on 17 shots.
Oh, and then Florida. That was
That was Minnesota
so
before
long
that.
ago. Oh, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. And this is the one that, they just, they had the lead, and then they lost the lead, and then they lost in overtime. This game. Kaprizov was really good as far as I remember.
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes scored that first one because he's a problem.
Yeah.
This was honestly, I remember this being a pretty impressive showing for being in the last game of a 6-game road trip
Against the best team in the West. Yep.
Yeah, like they played him. They played him pretty well. They were the better team in the third period, even though they allowed the only goal. And then in overtime, I feel like it was a fairly even overtime. Like either team could have scored there. I mean, didn't Besser hit the post in overtime?
Yep, right before.
Short side.
And didn't Kaprizov trip Garland blatantly and didn't get called for it?
Yeah, that was more of a trip than we saw last night for sure.
Yeah.
Just great officiating as always.
Wow. Okay, so I'm pretty sure last week when we did our show, we had 4 games to predict, didn't we? Because we knew that we'd be doing it after. Yeah, we knew. So we predicted all 4. I'm pretty sure I said 2-1-1. I'm pretty sure you said 3-1. Does that sound right?
I think we only predicted the 3. I don't think we had the Monday set in stone yet. But I think you went 1-1-1,
and you went 2-1.
I think I went 2-1.
Yeah.
So 3 games this week.
Yeah.
Because the Canucks play tomorrow, which is Thursday at 7, Saturday against the Bruins at 7, Monday at 7:30 against the Avs, and then our show will be Tuesday next week, if I remember correctly. So just to really mess up your guys' schedules who are watching, next Tuesday at 10 p.m. Was it 10 p.m. or does it have to be later?
No, 10's fine. I do not have bowling that night, so we're good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
10 p.m. Next Tuesday. So 3 games against 3 good teams, right? The Panthers, the Bruins. Obviously, the Bruins have had their struggles, and we beat them 2 weeks ago. With Joe Sacco.
Not Sakic. Yeah, Sacco.
No. And the Bruins did they got throttled by the Jets yesterday, 8-1. But they've been doing okay. I mean, they had won 4 in a row before that. Not an easy opponent. Obviously, the Avs are the Avs. They're always tough, even though their record doesn't show it, right? They're 17-13 with a -4 goal differential.
Wow.
But they'll be okay, right? They've won 3 in a row. It's not great teams, but that's 3 really hard games.
Parker, can you do me a favor? I don't think I can post a poll. You can, right? In your YouTube.
I don't have it open. No.
Okay, then don't worry about it.
Wrong machine.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, just because we're talking about the Avs a little bit, and then we can talk about Miller and blah blah blah. I've always said that if it was reversed and we were in Colorado, I'm talking about Makar Hughes, obviously. I'm pretty sure I would say the exact same thing from a standpoint of loyal to your guy. So if I was in Colorado, I could see myself being a Colorado vlogger and saying, I love the fact that we have Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes is awesome defenseman. Just like I'm going to say to you right now, I love the fact that we have Quinn Hughes and I think Cale Makar is an awesome defenseman because both can be true. Both can be true, right? And I think, they're always going to be linked because they're 1 year apart, both high draft picks, both play similar style. They both won 1 Norris now. Of course, Makar has a Stanley Cup. Then some would say, well, I would get a Stanley Cup too if I was playing with McKinnon and Rantanen. And then others are say, no, that sets them apart. Whatever. I don't care. I just think we're blessed to have these 2 guys going to go head to head for the next 12 to 15 years still, or whatever, 10 to 12 years. So it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I saw some interesting analytics from Makar for this year because obviously he's fantastic. But this year he hasn't been as good in his own zone analytically.
Okay.
Really interesting stat. So shot share is the stat I'm going to use here. So what percentage of the shots does your team have when you are on the ice, essentially?
Okay.
The Colorado Avalanche, excluding Cale Makar, so just normal Colorado Avalanche players, when they are on the ice without Nathan MacKinnon,
Yeah.
they control 53% of the shots. So they're a slightly above average team without MacKinnon on the ice.
Okay.
Cale Makar without Nathan MacKinnon, 43% shot share. So without MacKinnon, Makar is struggling. However, with Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar has a 64% shot share. So it's weird because everyone on the team is doing like better with MacKinnon, but Makar to an extreme example. But Makar's the one. Like it's a weird stat. I don't know how to decipher it. I don't know what it means. But it seems that him and MacKinnon, when they're on the ice together, are very dangerous.
Yes.
But when like without him on the ice, Makar has struggled. And who knows? It's 20, 25 games in, right? That'll change.
Right.
But yeah, it's weird. Yeah. So Cale Makar I have an updated one. So Corsi, which is shot attempts. Yeah. Cale Makar with Nathan MacKinnon, 61%, without Nathan MacKinnon, 42. But Nathan MacKinnon also struggles without Cale Makar because Nathan MacKinnon with Cale Makar, we already said 61% shot share. Nathan MacKinnon without Cale Makar goes down to 45%.
Wow. Okay.
So the two of them together are phenomenal, but are both struggling without each other. It's a very weird stat, and it's like, who do you attribute that to, right? Obviously, it's probably a bit of both, but they're both struggling without each other, which is a very, very interesting stat.
Interesting, and I'm gonna try and put a perfect what do you call it, a comparison together. But I do remember, even without Miller, there have been times in their 5-year careers now where when Hughes and Petey are together, it is dynamic. Like they are just, they think the game the same way, anticipate, find gaps, all those things. And we hadn't seen a lot of that at the end of last year. And this year it was more Miller with Hughes, obviously, because Miller seemed to be a bit of the driver. But with Miller gone the last month, I'm starting to see a bit more of that with Petey and Hughes again. And obviously that's a good thing. But yeah, I can see the point behind your stat is that Makar and MacKinnon are such a dynamic duo. And I would love to see Hughes develop that chemistry with one of Miller or Petey once again.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think Petey's been better in the offensive zone, getting the puck back to Hughes. And I think they've been finding each other a bit better. And I think it helps that Petey's willing to shoot occasionally now, which opens up a bit more of a threat.
Do you put any stock in, and I'm not trying to make you pick one or the other. Like I put a lot of weight in the Makar's a right shot though, like a right side guy. That's huge to me. That's huge to me.
From a value perspective, it is for sure. Just because it's harder to, like, the sort of value of replacement is higher, right? Like, you're replacing your standard, like let's call it the 32nd best left shot D-man. There's less of a gap between Hughes and the number 32 lefty than there is to Makar to the number 32 righty.
Great point.
Because there's just less good right shot defensemen. That's why they're so valuable.
Yeah. Great point. And that's a good segue into Phil Hronek, our best right shot D guy. We were okay the first 3 or 4 games without him, but I think we very quickly see how what's the opposite of deep? Shallow our defense core is. It's pretty bad, man.
We've lost a lot of dynamics, right? Like Hughes has a little bit less of a safety valve, though it hasn't affected him. He's fine. But yeah, I think, like, again, one guy goes out, especially the top of your lineup, and everyone has to move up, which makes every pairing worse, right? Just like on the offense, every line gets worse when someone on the second line has to move to the first, third to the second, right? It worsens everybody. That's just the way injuries go, right? Unless you just slot one guy and then you make one line worse. But there's a lot of, like, you look at last night's grouping, right? Where's the danger? Right?
The danger's more on us, not by us.
Right. You have one guy in Quinn Hughes who can provide some danger, right?
Yeah.
But Tyler Myers isn't a threat on the ice. Like he's not gonna create something, right? He can be a fine defenseman, and that's not, it's not his job to be this dynamic offensive weapon. But when the Canucks are pushing into the offensive zone and trying to make a play, you don't have to worry about Carson Soucy or Noah Juleson or Tyler Myers or Mark Friedman or Vinny Desharnais. Five of the six guys that were in the lineup last night aren't a threat. Like, they might have a hard slap shot from the point, then it's a threat to your shins and your ankles, but like there's not going to be a lot of dynamics that you're getting with a Hughes, with a Brandstrom, frankly, or with a Phil Hronek. Phil Hronek, isn't to the, like, he's not as skilled, I'll say. But he's skilled enough, and he's stable, and he's a good player. And he at least has some danger to his game you're just not going to get from 5 of the 6 guys in the lineup last night. And then you couple that with a lot of danger missing up front, right? Yeah. You're not going to get a lot of danger from Höglander and Bluger right now, right? You're not going to get a lot of danger from Ratu, Sasson, and Heinen. Joshua Suter, Garland, you might get a little bit, and they did score. But really, it was a very front-loaded lineup last night with DeBrusk, Pettersson, and Besser, 3 guys who don't really work that well together. So you can see why it's maybe tough to get some offense going.
Great point. Actually, I want to get back to that real estate. Adam, thank you very much for pledging your allegiance for the last 3 months. We appreciate you. You kind of just said it again, but you said it earlier. I agree with you about the Pettersson Besser thing. A lot of times, Parker, if there's a goal where they're on the ice, it's usually because one or both of them are kind of floating or not playing really good defense. Yeah, you make a really good point. Offense has been okay, but defensively, they're both responsible players, but together, you're right. It's not working on the defensive side.
It's weird to me because they're both very cerebral players, right?
Yep.
Like Brock Besser's very good. Like, Brock Besser's not very fast, right? He's not going to burn you. But he gets open a lot and gets scoring opportunities and gets us a chance to make plays. And Pettersson's similar, right? He's not really blowing by guys very often, but he's usually in the right spot on the ice, and that creates some windows. But for some reason, when they're out there together, it just doesn't really work. And it's a chemistry thing, and some players just don't work well together, and that's totally fine. But that's why you need JT Miller to play with Brock Besser, and now Pettersson's got a guy he's getting that familiarity with in DeBrusk. And I think just losing JT Miller, I think gives you 2 not great lines instead of 2 really good lines.
Right. Yeah, and because you're at the game, and I try to talk about this at my show. If Besser was covering the slot guy, why didn't Soucy jam Holloway on that last play? So what did you see?
For me, I didn't see much. It was on the other side of the ice.
Yeah.
And frankly, they scored, and I didn't watch the replay. We just sort of got up and left. I didn't even see the puck go in the net. Like, it was just a long way to go.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna look at the clip here while we go. But look, to me, it looks like it's sort of a 2-on-1. I don't hate Soucy's play here, frankly. It's because DeBrusk sort of gets burned, right?
Right.
But Soucy doesn't have the chance to really look back at who's coming down the left wing, right? By the time the puck is over the blue line, Soucy never looks back the other way, really, right? So he can't really know if Besser is staying on his guy, and maybe a quick shoulder check's in order there. But Besser had his guy, and if Soucy knew that, then I'm sure he closes that gap. But I think Soucy maybe thought, okay, I have a forward coming back on that guy that might get burned or might not get the tie up well. So he should have just gotten that. I think he really was sure that there was going to be a pass coming, but especially once the guy gets to 3 feet from the crease, you got to be going for a stick check there. Force the play, make him make a mistake. So I don't think Soucy does anything wrong until the very end when he doesn't commit to doing something, right? Like once he gets to the the rim of the face-off circle, he should be checking that guy's stick, trying to disrupt him, and that just doesn't happen.
And here's a perfect example, Parker, the point you made of how everyone has to play a little bit higher, regardless of the goal. Obviously, you have Hughes, and then in a perfect world, Hronek is your second defenseman, and maybe even Brandstrom gets a bit because of his skating ability in OT. But without those 2 guys in the lineup, you're forced to play Hughes and then one of Susie or Myers in OT. What a difference. What a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not ideal. It's, yeah, just a goal. Yeah, it's a very preventable goal. Like
Yeah.
a threat that's really, it's really a 2-on-3, right? Like it shouldn't be that dangerous, but there's a
Yeah.
lot of ways that goal gets prevented, right?
Sure.
If it, like Besser's covering his guy, if DeBrusque is able to catch up, that breaks it up. If Susie commits, that breaks it up.
Yeah.
If Demko gets the glove a little higher, like
Yeah.
there's a million ways to break that one up, but it's a quick game.
Sure. Sure. All right. Let's talk about one more thing before we do our predictions and then go to people. So JT Miller is expected. Well, he practiced today, but
Mhm.
not on a full line rush. Talkett did say he is a possibility for tomorrow, but I don't. Maybe that's realistic given his familiarity. It's easy for them to move guys around, or maybe it's not realistic. I don't know. Just what do you expect from Miller when he comes back?
I think it would be if he's ready to play tomorrow, he should.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
I think bringing him back on at home hockey night in Canada against Boston, that crowd's every time he touches the puck, the
Yeah.
crowd's gonna cheer him on.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really cool. Um, Yeah, I just again because we don't know the circumstances. We don't know I don't know how much was he skating at all while he was gone, right? Like
Right.
did he lose a step conditioning wise, right? Like it's a tough thing for like if he was working out the whole time, then yeah, he can probably just step back in, right?
Yep.
But if he was if he was truly out of the weight room, not on the treadmill or anything like that, then maybe he's got to get a little bit more conditioning back up. So it's
Yeah.
without knowing the circumstances, it's tough.
Yep.
I'm sure we'll see line rushes in the morning. I don't know what the schedule is, but
Right.
obviously, yeah, he was sort of. I saw Bachelor had said he was basically all over the place, right? He was mixing in on a bunch of different lines, different looks.
Mm.
So sounds
Okay.
like yeah, it's a maybe, but I think, and I don't. I think tomorrow, obviously the crowd would give him love, but if you bring him back for that Bruins game, I think
Oh,
that's obviously going to be a packed house. Tickets are pretty expensive for that game.
yeah.
I think that's going to be it would be a cool moment, especially if he scores or something during that game.
Adam makes a really good point. Says zero energy for Josh's return, zero energy or effort in Demko's return. Where's the Nucks passion? Do we lose in a Miller return? Yeah, I don't know. You don't. Yeah, I really thought they'd come up with a more spirited effort again for Demko, just because everyone was saying the right things. They know how hard he's worked to get
Yeah,
back. They know how good of a teammate he is, and yeah, I get there's another team out there, but from what I could see, just looking up the monitor at the bowling alley, Parker, is the Canucks really had trouble like attacking the guts of the ice, as Tocchet said, and the Blues just simply look faster.
yeah, which they shouldn't.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
like that's yeah. The Canucks should be a better team. And
hmm
it feels like this has been a bit too common of a story, right?
right.
I don't feel like we're getting the most that we can. And there's a big difference in a team that has this current record that's overachieving versus one that's underachieving, right?
hmm
And I think this team's underachieving based on what they did last year, based on how we've seen them look. They just haven't had it yet.
Yep,
There's
yep,
been good stories, right? Pedersen has been better, right? He's still
yep.
not perfect, but like 23 points in his last 15 games, like he's been genuinely good. But yeah, it feels like every time there's a good story, there's a bad one at the same time, right?
Yeah,
The injuries, right? Hronik out 8 weeks. Miller being away, Besser getting a concussion, right? This team hasn't really gotten to play together yet, right?
yeah, yeah,
And most teams don't very often. Injuries are very common in sports. But man, all the Canucks injuries have been to their best players,
yeah.
right?
That's
That
true.
like, it's not and nothing against anyone I'm about to mention here, but it's not like it's not like Atu Ratu is out for 8 weeks
Yeah,
for some sort of surgery, right?
yeah,
It's your first pairing defenseman, and then
yeah,
it's your number one center taking leave. It's your number one right winger getting a concussion.
yeah.
It just it's been the difference makers, right? It's your number one goalie being out, your top 3 goalie in the NHL being out for 9 months. Like it hasn't been easy. And there's a world where everyone gets healthy around the same time around March maybe, and we carry some momentum. But it's a bit wishful thinking.
Yeah. And when you say it like that, Parker, the whole, yeah, it's not even my shtick. Like I from my positivity standpoint though, up until this week, I was actually fine with saying, given everything that's happened to the Canucks, they're fine. They're not awesome, but they're fine. They're sitting in 3rd place in the Pacific by a points percentage, battling for a playoff spot. Given everything, they're fine. But as I see them not win at home, I still believe that big picture, like overarching, I'm starting to get a little bit more. Maybe they're not fine. Maybe they're not fine. I guess Hronek's still 7 weeks away, so it's more JT Miller. We're going to basically be a full team except for Philip Hronek, so maybe we'll have a better indication. I don't know. I just don't like the way they've been playing recently.
I feel like I've felt that same vibe shift, right?
Yeah,
and we haven't really synced up on anything in the last week and a bit, but I think we've been sort of on the same boat of like, hey, there's, they've been going through some stuff, and really, if this is what the bad times are, then the bad times aren't so bad, right?
Right.
But you need the little glimpses of something to keep that positivity going, right? And we just haven't really had those the last, any of these home games. It's frustrating.
It is.
It's your barn. You're supposed to be dominant there. But man, it just feels like they're a different team at home.
Yep. I'm with you. Last thing, and then we'll go to the people. Quick reaction on the 4 Nations face-offs rosters, because those came out since we last met.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some interesting ones like Parayko, like you mentioned, but again, these are guys that aren't going to be getting a ton of ice time, right? Like there's a lot of really good players ahead of them in the lineup. You're talking about the guys who are going to play, 10, 11 minutes a night and aren't going to have a huge impact, right? They're still really good players. I'm just excited for this tournament. It's going to be just good to have, international hockey back, be able to cheer for Canada. And we also got World Juniors in 2 weeks. It was a nice little preview as well. So
good point.
I don't care that much about the rosters until we get to the actual games. And that's all I'm looking forward to.
And are you unequivocal? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, just asking. Unequivocal Canada over US, not in terms of who you think is going to win, but who you're cheering for. Canada versus two Canucks players, could have been 3 or 4 on the US team. That's not an issue.
Care less.
Okay,
no, they're the bad guys once that blue jersey goes on.
Love it. The US goaltenders are pretty darn good.
They are, but it's 4 games. Right?
Yep.
It's 3 round robin games and a championship game. You need one guy to get hot for 4 games, and we've got guys who've done that, right? So I'm not. It's one of those things. Like goalies don't make a lot of sense, right? With a small sample size, you can say, hey, 1 game, I want X goalie, right? It's like, I want Andrei Vasilevsky for my 1 game, or Connor Hellebuck for my 1 game.
Sure.
But 4 games, things can get a little weird.
Yeah. I know how old you were in 2010, but I'm also going to presume that you watched the game. Martin Brodeur was the starter for Canada, and he won game 1. And then game 2, they played against the US. I think they lost 5-2 or something. And it wasn't even his fault, but it's almost like Team Canada was just waiting for a chance to put Luongo in to satisfy all the home, all the angst at home. And sure enough, he went the distance, and it wasn't always smooth. Like there were some nervous moments in that gold medal game again against the US, but it's just kind of funny with goaltending. I hear what you're saying about you got to ride the hot guy. Guys only got to get hot for 3 or 4 games, like Luongo kind of did. No one would say that he was a better goalie than Brodeur at the time. That's why Brodeur was a starter, but he got hot in front of a rabid crowd, and there we go.
No, that's all it is, right? Like any player can be a random hero in a random tournament, right? Like
Right.
I think
Right.
back to like TJ Oshie and whenever that was.
Yeah, that's
when
right.
when he was just unbelievable, and it was like, wow, this guy's going to be the future of the NHL, and he's a good player, but like he peaked in an international tournament,
Yeah.
which is very cool. But yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
fun about these, right? Especially 4 games, you might have some some third
Yep.
liner go out and score 4 goals in this tournament. That's going to be a really cool story.
Yep. Yep. I'm with you. You want to go to the Peel for 10 minutes?
Let's do it.
All right. Peter says this. Where are you? Oh, sorry. You want to go first?
No, that was the one I was going to pick. I know our audio is kind of syncing off, but you're good.
Okay, beautiful. Where are you guys with Talkit in terms of the system? It's frustrating to see the lack of shots and the constant odd man rushes.
System's tough because we've seen it work, right? We saw it work. We saw it work in the playoffs last year. And analytically, the Canucks are a top 3 team in expected goals allowed at 5-on-5, right? And like the expected goals against at 5-on-5, it's like 2.1 per 60 minutes. Like it's remarkably low. It's third best in the NHL. So defensively, I think the system's fine, right? Especially when we're looking at the lineup and it's Desharnais and Juleson and guys who aren't elite defensemen, right? The Canucks D-core isn't great, and we know that. But this team is one of the best in the league at protecting their own net at 5-on-5.
Right.
Offense, it's really, to me, it's the offense. And you say lack of shots, and I agree with that. It does feel like they're just not producing much. And I don't know how much of that is on the players' side. Like it's a tough one to define, right? On where that fault lies. But again, the defensive side of it's working, and I think that's their primary goal.
Right.
And just hopefully the offense starts ticking a little bit better.
Yeah, I know a lot of people complaining, Parker, about their offense being too much dump and chase, not enough creativity, getting in the zone and actually doing something with it. Yeah. As opposed to the defensive system. The offensive system is maybe what people are kind of in angst with. Although it looks like Peter was actually talking about the defensive because of both lack of shots and odd man rushes. So both. Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. Maybe Miller helps shore that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's a big piece, right? Yeah, I think because when's the last time the Canucks had their top 4 all in the lineup, right? Their top 4 forwards is what I'm saying, right? DeBrusk, Petey, Miller, Besser. Because right when Besser came back, Miller was gone. So they have, and then Besser was gone for 10, 11 games, something like that. So this team hasn't had all 4 of these guys playing since like game 10 of the season or something like that. So that should help the offense. And I'm not trying to like make excuses because obviously they haven't been up to snuff. When the Kiefer Sherwood goals start drying up, which we knew would happen, right? It starts to look a little bit tough, and Pius Suter he can't score 30 for you. He might, but he can't. That's not a good sign. So I'm excited to have the high powered players on the offense all back at once, and then at that point, the only guys we're missing are Hronek and Forward. And I say only, right? Your number 2 defenseman is one of those. But on the forward side, you actually have what you would expect to have for the season.
Right. Who was our last elite goaltender in Canada?
It was Carey Price and Fleury, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
And granted, there hasn't been a lot of best on best since the World Cup of Hockey in 2016. So
no, but yeah, after Luongo and Price, retired, I think that was the last gasp. And then Fleury, when he was younger, I think 4 or 5 years ago. But we haven't really had many come up.
Sure. Fangirl saying, given the Landeskog never ending, is he going to come back? Is it time for him to give up the captaincy to someone like Makar or McKinnon?
I don't know. He's skating every once in a while. Like I don't know. I think it's something that he'd obviously have to do, and I think he would do it if he wasn't going to play again this season. Like he's not making it back this year. But that again, it would be on him to do, right? The coaches aren't going to go to him and ask him. He would have to do that. I don't think that's the reason that the Avalanche are 17-13, right? I don't think that's their big issue. But he's only 32, right? If it wasn't for the health issues like that, it's such a big piece they're missing.
I know. Elfrin saying Canada's tournament to lose. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think US is the favorite. Irwin says not embracing enough hard.
Yeah.
One of the slogans. Question about Archie Baines from Edmond. When do you think he draws in? And when do you guys predict Alvin makes his first move? Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the Baines front. I think he's just if you need to mix it up. Honestly, I've been fine with Sasson. Baines didn't produce anything really. Right, he had the one goal. Although on the other hand, it's not like Sasson's played 8 games now. He has 2 assists. Right, he's not. Mm-hmm. It's not like he's racking it up either. But it's not really their job to. I think Sasson's looked better in an all-around role than Baines has. So I think that's why they're just going to stick with him. Because right now, when your fourth line is either Ratu, Sasson, and Heinen, or Ratu, Baines, and Heinen, that line is not designed to produce, right? Yes, that line is designed to go out there, eat 11 minutes without getting shelled, and get off. And I think Sasson gives you a better opportunity to do that. With the way this roster's built, that line, it's just not going to be a line that produces. And I don't think Baines has the two-way as of yet.
Right. Are the Canucks a sleeping giant waiting to go on a tear? You know what's interesting, Parker, is I listen to a lot of sports radio. I know you do as well. There are a lot of insiders or experts saying that the Canucks still can be very good once they have all their guys back. Once they're healthy, they're still considered a legitimate contender. I don't disagree with that. However, a lot of things need to go right. So to answer this particular question, I don't think they are a sleeping giant. I think they're like what's less than a giant, like just a big guy. Like that's what a horrible analogy. I just don't call them a sleeping giant. I think they can play better. They will play better, but I don't expect them to go on like a 10 wins out of 12 run or anything like that.
I think they have the ceiling of a sleeping giant.
Okay.
Like from a roster perspective,
right?
And taking into account the inevitable trade for a defenseman, right? I think like you look at the way this team's constructed. You look up front with everyone healthy, it's a good hockey team on paper, right? Yep. The defense, add in a true good second pair defenseman. Yep. You have Hughes, Hronek, Myers, ex-defenseman, or Soucy, an ex-defenseman, and then Brandstrom and Myers, let's say. That's a good enough defense with the offense you have, with a top 3 goalie.
Yes.
Like on paper, this team has that potential. We haven't seen the glimmers of it yet, which is where the concern starts to set in. Because you'd expect to see a couple of games where they just are absolutely dominant, right? You want that 8-1 from game 1 last year, right? You want a game where they just go in, they dominate, they leave. So it's tough to get that full picture because again, this team hasn't had all of its top players in the lineup in a month or longer. So yeah, the potential's there. I'm not super confident in it, but we all know how this goes. They'll go on a 5-game winning streak in February or March. Every team does, right? You get hot at one point, and everyone will be like, "Oh, they're here." They've arrived, and it's whether or not they carry it, right?
Right.
Because you also know they'll have a 5-game losing streak at some point as well, and it'll be like, "Oh, the sky's falling. This team's dead."
Right.
So it's trying to sift through that noise, but they could be, but they're not there right now.
Yeah, I do like that. The ceiling of a sleeping giant. So basically they live in a big castle. And finally, let's end with this one. What would you, because it's kind of interesting. Jacob Trouba went for not a lot to Anaheim.
Well, I think he has negative value with that contract, right? Like it's a big contract. It's an interesting move for Anaheim. Like I don't fully get it. I don't know. I'm not a big Jacob Trouba fan. Based on his history and tendency to get the elbows up. I just, I don't like it from a Canucks perspective because it means we're playing more games against a guy who likes to throw his elbows at heads,
Good point.
which isn't ideal. But it's not it's just not that exciting to me, right? Because he's going to Anaheim.
Yeah.
Anaheim's not doing anything, so to me, it's sort of just like, oh, here's a guy sort of who's going to fade off into, an irrelevant team.
Yeah. No, all makes sense. All makes sense. You're good point about the fact that we got to face him one or two more times a year than we would if he played on the Rangers, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, prediction time. We got 3 games to predict before our next show. We have the 3 powerhouses: Florida on Thursday night, Boston on Saturday night, and Colorado on Monday night. What are you saying?
This team loves losing in overtime. They sure love losing in overtime. So there's got to be at least one OT loss in there, and I think you throw another. I think a fine set would be 1-1-1 against these 3 teams, and that seems about right to me. And I'm going to say they beat Boston on Saturday.
I agree with you.
That feels like the one that I just would want that to happen. So I'm gonna pick that one.
Yeah.
Tomorrow against Florida, I think it's tough. Monday against the Avs. Are the Avs at like the end of a road trip or anything?
I don't know.
Start of a road trip, so they'll be fine. Yeah, that one's. I think they lose in regulation tomorrow, win against Boston, lose in OT to Colorado.
I was going to say the exact same thing, but to make it less boring, I will see your Avalanche extra time loss and raise it to a Canucks regulation win, because Edmund just convinced me we can beat Boston and Colorado because the Avs goaltending is spotty. So I'm going 2-1 for Vancouver.
We'll take it. All right, folks. Thank you all for joining us tonight. If you missed any part, you can find it on your favorite podcast platform shortly. You can rewind here on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, do all those things. Clay, any parting words this Wednesday night?
Looking forward to JT Miller coming back. Looking forward just in time for at least hopefully 2 of these next 3 tough games. And for anyone who wants to talk more, I'm actually doing a member stream tonight. I do those twice a month. So it's not the big community, just the members. So you're welcome to join me in about 15 minutes on my channel.
Excellent. Folks, thank you all for joining us. Have a good night, and we will see you next Tuesday, 10 p.m. next week.